Welcome to the podcast. When young people think of future careers, they often think of artificial intelligence, finance, coding, media, or startups. Very few immediately think of plants. Yet we pause for a moment. If we pause for a moment, we realize something powerful. Human life is built on botany. The food on our plates, the oxygen we breathe, the medicines we trust, the forests that cool our planet, the crops that feeds nations, the herbs in our homes, the fibers in our clothes, and the biodiversity that keeps the earth alive. All of these are connected to the science of plants and botany. It is not just a study of leaves, roots, flowers, and seeds. It is a study of survival. It tells us how security is protected, how climate change can be fought, and how diseases can be treated, how farmers can grow better crops, how forests can be restored, and how new industries can be built around sustainability, biotechnology, herbal medicines, agriculture, environment, and conservation. For young learners and young professionals, botany opens a world far beyond the classroom. It can lead to careers in research, agriculture technology, plant biotechnology, environmental consulting, forestry, conservation, pharmaceuticals, food science, seed technology, climate resilience, teaching, entrepreneurship, and policy. In a world worried about jobs, climate, health, and food, botany may be one of the most underrated career fields of the future. Today, we have two distinguished young botany professors with us to help us understand this world better, not as a subject to memorize for exams, but as a living science that shapes our future. Let us begin. I welcome Dr. Neelam Mishra and Dr. Anisha David, currently with St. Joseph University in Bangalore, a city that I call home. They are joining us tonight to help us decode the world of botany. Welcome to the show. So let me start with you, Dr. Neelam. When young students hear the word botany, many think it is only about studying plants. How would you explain the real importance of botany to young learners in today's world?
Yes, sir. So, botany is actually, when it comes to, as you said, the subject, it talks about like only plants, green plants, but actually it is much more beyond. There are so many branches associated with botany. You can call it as a mother of actually life sciences, botany. There are so many branches of botany. You can say plant taxonomy, plant biotechnology. So it's all those new branches, applied fields are actually associated with plants, and then talking about applied aspects of all, like plant taxonomy, plant biotechnology, plant biochemistry, and many more. So botany is not only about just looking at the plants and studying the plants. It is much more beyond now, in terms of research, in terms of its applications, whether it is agriculture, medicine, or any kind of innovation or any kind of drug discovery. Botany is everywhere, actually, if I tell you.
So, Dr. Anisha, young learners today, why would you ask them to take botany seriously at a time when people are so enamored by AI, coding, business, and finance? What makes botany special, and why should young learners embrace it?
So, as far as I feel, especially when it comes to the young learners, uh, in the coming age and scenario where climate change, sustainability, these are the topics that we are discussing. This is where we need a major input to be coming in, right? And the only organisms that can actually bring a change, whether we are talking about carbon footprints, uh, it's somewhere it is the plants that we focus on, because only they have the capability to take up that carbon dioxide and release oxygen, which is really required by all other living organisms and to sustain this life on earth. So, unless we have a background knowledge, so as Dr. Neelam very clearly said, it's not just about naming of plants and taxonomy, which botany is limited to, but it is way beyond that. How we can improve the environment that we live in, how we can make it a better place for the future generations. And yes, and the baton has to be passed from one generation to another. AI, of course, it helps us to walk through forward into this agenda. But end of the day, just sitting in nice AC rooms with AI, we cannot actually bring the real change.
That's true.
So,
That's true.
yes.
Dr. Neelam said, mother of life sciences, and you also nailed it when you say that, you can't bring real change into lives sitting in AC rooms doing AI. But just the question to both of you, and I'll start with you, Dr. Nisha. What is it that personally you got attracted botany to? I mean, what attracted you to botany?
Okay, so honestly speaking, more than me getting attracted to botany, it was actually botany which chose me. So, like any other student, where you have more fascination towards animal sciences, that's how I was going. But plant sciences were the one who chose me, and I just trailed my path. I kept walking on, and as I kept moving, there is a phase after which there's no difference between the different branches of life sciences, whether you say botany, zoology, biotechnology, microbiology, biochemistry, they all merge together. It's a very interdisciplinary space. And as I learned more, there is so much scope, and for there's so much scope to learn new things every other day. And honestly speaking, there's a whole sea, vast ocean, um, that is there yet for me to learn. It's just the tip of the iceberg what I know, honestly speaking. So as we keep learning more, you actually get humbled more, and you realize that how well you can apply all those learnings and execute it for the betterment of the world around you.
So, Dr. Neelam, what inspired you to pursue botany?
Truly speaking, if I tell, my father was a very good in gardening. So whenever he comes from office, he used to sit in the garden, and there only he'll take his tea, and he used to look at the plants, and he'll do all those. And I was very attracted to different diversity of the plants. Same plant, green plant, the leaves are of different shape, different size, and one is a big tree, one is a small one. Will how much ever you water, it will never grow like a big tree. So it was something kind of curiosity was there, how much diverse it is. Not only plants, as like algae, bryophytes, the lower organisms which are there, that are there in the water, they are also doing good amount of jobs when it comes to bioremediation and all those things. Fine. So algae, bryophytes, pteridophytes. So I was like kind of very interested that how these are so different. They are very beautiful. They are providing you so much of, whenever I am near to nature, to near to that garden, it feels me like all my worries will be gone. Like, so I was thinking like there's some positive vibes in there around those plants that makes you forget everything when
Yeah.
you are near them. Until date, I am also very fond of gardening and things and plants, and I pursue my research also with the plants. So it's like, I don't know, it's the diversity of the plants, and it's some kind of positive vibes that plants, gives you, that somehow you forget all your worries and things. So
Couple of things you said which triggered some memories, old memories of Bangalore in me. Garden City, St. Joseph. I remember in the late 80s and early 90s, from St. Joseph main gate, you could walk right up to Brigade Road in medium rain and not get wet. There was such a tree cover. Of course, it's all gone now, but the tree cover was so lush and so dense, you could walk in medium rain and not a drop would fall on you for a kilometer or more right up to Brigade Road. But yeah, those days are far gone. But yes, Bangalore still has a lot of diversity, and we'll come to that. But just for lay people, Dr. Anisha, if you can speak about how botany affects our daily lives, from food, medicine, climate, health. Uh, how does it all come together?
So as
People
Neelam
don't
ma'am,
know this, right? People don't notice. They take it for granted. Food on the
Yeah,
table,
of course, the
it is
clothes
there.
I'm wearing, the
Yeah,
food I'm eating, the air I'm breathing, everything A to Z, thanks to the plants.
yeah.
So, as Neelam ma'am very rightly told in the starting itself, it's the mother of all sciences because this is the only science where life has the ability to grow on its own with all the just the basics, and not just that. It's that science which loves to give rather than take, right? Give life to others, support life across all other sciences, all other spheres, I should say. And if we look into our day-to-day regime, starting from the morning, or the mattress on which you sleep, whether it's cotton or coir, comes from the plant, right? The linen that you use, it's everybody loves cotton. If it's, yeah. And of course, with the summer seeping in, the only fabric that makes you feel good is cotton or it's linen. So there again from the plants, the food we are eating, A to Z, anything, even if you plan about eating any of the non-veg, those animals also feed on plants.
True.
Thanks to the plants for all the lovely non-veg that we have across. So yeah, or the best of your beverages, tea, coffee, alcoholic drinks, rice,
That's an
barley.
interesting one. Even the alcohol drinks
Yes,
come from that.
everything.
The famous tequila
So
comes from agave plant. Yeah.
everything, everything. So there are so many cooling drinks down in south. We have this Vetriware and all the cooling drinks. Ma'am, you must be knowing some cooling drinks of the north as well, which are all coming from the plants, helping us in the scorching summer. So, I
Time to
mean,
time, people discover superfoods, right? So there's a whole phase of moringa now, which we were
yes,
eating in our daily lives in sambar every day, but suddenly it's,
exactly,
I didn't even know it was
exactly.
called moringa.
It is moringa, and the leaves of moringa, honestly speaking, they are a very rich source of iron. And many of you would have heard that African countries where malnutrition is a huge problem, these dried moringa leaf powders are a huge health boosters over there, especially for the feeding lactate and pregnant women. So
So
the moringa, that it's not just the fruit, it's the leaves, the flowers, and plant like coconut, banana, not even one part of the plant is wasted. Everything gets used.
that's very true. So, Dr. Neelam, botany also has changed like other subjects a lot over the last 20, 30 years. Now it is all sits at the cusp of technology, biotechnology, genetics, climate science. Uh, how fast has this change been in the botany area compared to other areas? I mean, we see technology. We always think of change when we think of fast change. We always relate it to technology. But botany has changed a lot as well.
It has, sir. If you want to integrate AI, AI can be now it is integrated in botany as well. So,
Okay.
say for just an example, if I tell you plant pathology, now there are tools which are basically that can tell you what, if you have that tool and if you have that software, if you focus it on the leaf or the stem of the plant, it will correctly identify the pathogen, and it will tell you the remedies also. What are the prevention that can be done, and what how can you cure that disease which are there in that plant. So it is evolving. So in terms of taxonomy, if I tell, there are softwares which can basically tell you exactly how to identify the plants and on what basis this plant is called is falling in this family. Talking about plant biotechnology, at the end of the day, if you are doing any kind of genetic engineering, you have to apply it somewhere. Now, to apply it to a human beings, it's a very ethical issues are there. But to create transgenic plants, it's not, that of a major concern to see the gene. So to improve the stress tolerance in plants and things like that. So botany comes in there again. We want to modify our crop plants. Even in my PhD also, we were trying to develop some stress tolerant varieties And there are a lot of breeding, plant breeding things, plant biotechnology. With the use of all these things, we are basically trying to develop stress tolerant cultivars, which is very much needed. And apart from botany, like botany, instead of just giving when they are there, uh, also, or talking about whatever Anisha ma'am was telling, food, shelter, clothing, everything is because of botany only. At the end of the day, if you think, also these plants, they are regulating the temperature, the rainfall, the ecosystem. It's basically making the entire earth, life on the earth is sustainable because of the plants.
Yeah.
So that somebody has to realize.
Yeah. So when you said mother of life sciences, this gives a sense of the scale. But when people think of careers, young people, right? Because that is our audience watching and getting coached. If they want a career in finance or technology or do an MBA, there's a clear path. You do this graduation, then you do this, then you do this. But supposing somebody wants a career in botany or life sciences, what is the study path? Is it graduate, MTech, something, or are there some other ways to diversify and go? Dr. Neelam, if you could take a first shot at that.
See, sir, very straight away path is either you go for teaching or research, which is well known. You complete your masters, and then you go for a PU college teaching and things like that. Research, you complete your masters, MTech, and then your PhD, postdoc, and then you can teach in higher colleges. You can do your teaching and research. So these are very well defined paths. Apart from that, there are a lot more opportunities for botany people. Say, if in example, in forensic sciences we do have, then in palynology, allergy specialists are there. Like, people are looking for people who are having an expertise. Say, nowadays we are suffering from all these kinds of allergies from invasive plants, so people are looking for someone who is having an kind of in and out knowledge about the plants which are causing those allergies. So even you can work hand in hand with the doctors. So palynology field, in ecology field, you will have a good amount of career is there. Then if I talk about pharmaceutical industries, they are actually looking for the people who are having an in-depth knowledge about the plant, because we know more than 70% of the medicines are actually coming from plants. So people, after doing masters from botany, they can go for pharmaceutical industries, food industries, where now basically nowadays what is happening is everybody is looking for the colors which are added in all these kind of items and preservatives. So if it is colors which are coming from the botany, from the plant side, so they are much safer. So food industries are looking for somebody who are interested, or you are basically are kind of having knowledge about plants which can give you all those kind of colorants, flavors to be added as a nutraceutical and functional foods. Even in chemical industries, where basically people are looking for phytochemistry, as in, again, they are deriving some kind of drugs from the plants, so they need a in-depth knowledge about that plant, where that plant is, what kind of chemicals are present in that plant. And again, I'm telling, botany, we are not teaching only the plants or identification, we are much more, we are identifying phytochemistry, food and dairy industry, even algae, mushroom cultivation. If you see, people are taking up entrepreneurship opportunities. Our own students, they have developed their own cultivation, mushroom cultivation, and it's a big boom. Then nurseries, gardens, they can go for that entrepreneurship.
Yeah,
What else I would tell you? Yeah.
interesting. So, Dr. Anisha, all these specializations,
Yes.
people arrive at this by doing research, or are there courses available for people to specialize in all of these?
Okay, so a major chunk of it comes from research. So, as ma'am told, where in food industry you need to know about the chemical composition in the plants, what kind of colors can be extracted. All these come out of research. But then, of course, we do have other sister branches of botany, like we have horticulture, then floriculture, then these are other branches where you get specialized into certain aspect of like growing flowers, growing of vegetables. And in the government sector also, though limited seats, but we have job opportunities. And with the coming up of all these gardens and huge apartment like setups and city green spaces, so there is a lot of scope where this landscaping is also another one field because you cannot just grow any random plant in that particular space. Depending on the climate, the soil, the availability of water, you can choose on certain type of plants. And yes, it has to be planned. So unless you have a knowledge of it, you cannot just randomly grow anything just because it looks beautiful.
Yeah.
So there are these specialized fields, and of course, it can also lead towards textiles as well.
Yeah. So when I was growing up, and even now parts of Bangalore, there's a certain kind of vegetation that was very intelligently put by some people in the past on our streets, right? Certain kinds of trees were there. They would flower at certain times, and it was very intelligently done. And recently, a couple of years ago, when for my son's marriage, I was trying to buy flowers. When I got the quote, I thought he was making me buy the land on which the flowers were grown rather than the flowers itself. It was so expensive. But yes, a lot of these areas are opening up. Especially the people who live in cities. The whole area of allergies. Of, the pharmaceuticals, etc. These are very visible. And Dr. Neelam mentioned that students do become entrepreneurs in some of these areas. What are Dr. Neelam? What are the areas that you think uh, young entrepreneurs should start focusing? Some of them focus on the very obvious ones, right? Agriculture based or plant based or mushrooms and things like that. But are there more specialized areas where we are importing a lot of stuff or importing a lot of R&D knowledge or paying for patents, etc., for medicines or for expertise or for equipment? Are there areas where Indian entrepreneurs should be focusing a little bit more on?
One thing that comes in my mind is about those microgreens. It's very famous nowadays. So, a very good amount of startups are there basically, which are investing on, cultivating those microgreens in a, laboratory kind of or a controlled environment in hydroponics or in a soilless culture or soil culture also. So, that is one area where people plant tissue culture, it's basically conserving those kind of endangered and some kind, not only endangered, say orchids, what all orchids and all that we are getting in marriages and all, it's very difficult to propagate orchids. So it a good amount of entrepreneurship is there in terms of plant tissue culture. You take that orchid and from that one you make hundreds in a small controlled environment, and then you can sell it at, because you must be knowing how much costly is that flowers of orchids and all, because in terms of aesthetic value, the plant tissue culture is what I can think of, where they are growing plants for all those kind of beautification and things. Microgreens is something for consuming. Then nowadays plant based proteins are coming actually, so that also something people are trying to cultivate, or you can say they are trying to grow it in a controlled environment so that they can, because nowadays most of the people are going on kind of switching from non-veg to veg side, so growing those plant based proteins kind of things. Then algae, if I say about spirulina is nothing but a blue green algae, so it's that is also some kind of kind of entrepreneurship people do look at, is spirulina cultivation. So it's a spirulina tablets that come, and it's again a very good source of high source of protein. You take one, 1/10 of the protein bar, and that will come with one small 1 grams of what is spirulina that you will consume. So those are some kind of things, but I still feel that it is little more less, known by people. Only a handful of people know this, and that's what we are here for, to educate them, to make sure that they know, and there are ample amount of things that can be done.
So, Dr. Anisha, Dr. Neelam made some important observations and suggestions there. So, more than students, sometimes it's parents who think that botany is a limiting science or a limiting subject. It is not as rewarding, etc. But if you just look at all the sub and the specializations you spoke about, these are highly paid sectors. Whether it's pharmaceuticals, whether it's biotechnology, whether it's the research into allergies, etc. These are really happening sectors. So, if you were advising parents and students who still see botany as a limiting or traditional subject, what would you tell them? I mean, how would you open up the minds? It's a lot like when I was growing up. if I since I did not become an engineer or a doctor and became a CA, I was looked down upon. Oh, CS, what will you do by doing CA? So, what kind of advice do you give parents? Because you must be meeting a lot of people in society with young children, etc. So, when they come to know that you have studied botany and you have done research and you are teaching botany, what kind of advice do you give them?
So that's a little tricky question, especially seeing the current scenario where job markets are something which parents and students both look towards, and that's where a big question mark there is. But yes, of course, when I say that from botany, it's like without really botany, I mean, you must be this, you must be that. It's not really easy. So here, honestly speaking, interest is something which is really important, and that interest for a handful of students is something which is inbuilt, which is there in them. They are with the nature, they want to understand it better and make it better. But there's another good bunch of students whom, if we can tune them in the right way, give them the right kind of information, uh, they can be brought into the stream, because once you understand the depth of the science and how much it influences your life, that is when they can start appreciating it rather. And so, somewhere I feel this bringing in this realization in the current age and time of AI and all big money giving jobs, I should say. So, that's one challenge.
Yeah,
But yes,
this is more life giving and life saving, and money follows. So, Doctor, yeah. So, Doctor Neelam, have you noticed? So, a lot of industries, professions, etc., went through dramatic change pre-COVID and post-COVID. Anything changed for you all post-COVID? Was there more interest, more enrollment, or less? More curiosity or less?
To be honest, after COVID, there was less interest among the students
Hmm.
regarding these basic sciences, not only botany. There were other subjects also which were like basic ones like physics, maths, because what happened is people were becoming insecure, I feel, including parents, and they wanted very secure kind of path for their child. They didn't wanted to invest their child to study in BSc, MSc, PhD, postdoc, and then get a job. So, but I think this is for only a limited time. Very soon it will again boom up. The basic sciences, they have lost a little bit. Now it is again coming up, but actually immediately after COVID, it was a very declining phase for all the basic sciences. But then I think again that interest has to be, as Anisha ma'am was telling, that yes, interest should be there within also. And then parents also can always, as a parent, always used to tell my kid that yes, the food that you are eating is from plants. Then there's plants, forest, this, how are they, not only plants, like the basic, the wildlife which is there. So that parents also, that is our responsibility as a parent, as a adult, it's our responsibility to make sure to realize, to make them realize, the younger generations, yes, AI is important, technology is important, but you cannot completely omit your basic sciences. You need to have a strong foundation of all those basic sciences, then only you can move forward, because at one point of time you'll be stuck then. So if you know the solutions, but if you don't know the root and depth of that foundation of that, you can't grow there.
Very, very well said. We will end with one final question, which has got nothing to do with botany, more to do with you as an educator. So I'll pose one to each one of you. So, Dr. Anisha, in an age where the students are seemingly smarter with their smartphones in the classroom, how do you manage a class? Because everything you said can be fact checked. Everybody thinks they're smarter than the lecturer. How do you manage a classroom? How do you keep them curious? How do you keep them excited? How do you keep them engaged?
that's quite a big challenge for us, because uh, what you're saying is very true. Everything, whatever we are teaching, everything is available in the form of some lectures, in the form of notes. It's everything is there on the internet. And but somewhere, honestly speaking, we too had books, but reading through books, only books, used to be a nightmare. But the same thing, if your lecturer had taught you in the class and then you refer the books, it just seeps into you very well, and it stays there for long. So as far as I can see, of course there are a bunch of students, but apart from that, the students, they have this still have this realization that there are a lot of things they can pick up from the class when the teacher is teaching. So we have to be well prepared. As you said, fact checks can be done at any time and queries can come up. So we are also prepared enough for that. And yes, if there are any slips, we are ready to accept. And we come up with, we accept, okay, we are humans, but it needs thorough preparation, in and out, not just in your subject, but what are the possible other things that you can connect to, because if we need to be relevant in this day and age, we cannot be just speaking about botany, but how we can interconnect it with the daily life and the applications, how this botany is useful to us. The moment they start connecting to it, okay, what I'm studying today, somewhere it has some application somewhere, they will start enjoying it. So
Yeah,
it this is something what none of your recorded lectures or your content can do.
yeah.
So that is
That,
where that human interface is very
that's
useful. Yeah.
That's true. That's true. It's a challenge a lot of educators face, but how you have put it is very interesting. Dr. Neelam, I'm going to ask you the same question in a different way. Today, when people speak of research, people have so much material available to them readily. Earlier, to catch somebody plagiarizing something was difficult. Today, with AI, people can write their thesis in minutes. And we see it in a different way in resumes, right? People write resumes which are so beautifully written that it cannot possibly be human. And when the candidate comes, we feel, oh my God, he's a complete fake and a fraud. How do how does genuine research happen now? I mean, how do you make out what is the difference? Because to Dr. Anisha's the point also, everybody with 20, 30 years experience is saying all my wisdom is available in a 1 minute Instagram reel. And people start wondering, then what's the point of going through all of this? What's the point of doing all this research if everything can be done on a machine quickly? You see, do you think there's any value left in traditional research, or people or researchers need to evolve and use these technologies to do something much higher? What's your view?
Yes, sir, truly said. It's very difficult to convince the students. Only a handful of students are actually who are really motivated enough. They can only come here to that stage of research when I talk about PhD and postdoc. Now, with the use of AI, anything you can do. Writing an email, it's like anything and everything is available. You just give the command, they'll give. But this will not work in, for a long term. When you're doing research, you have to be really innovative. You have to be, what you say is, you have to connect yourself, and then you have to see it comes as a reward. I myself is having 3 PhD scholars with me. Initially they were little demotivated, but as and when the results started coming and they started feeling, okay, we are something, maybe we are doing 0.001%, we are contributing to the science. So that kind of, if that student is getting kind of, motivation, ultimately it will come. Yes, AI is there. Again, I heard somewhere in one of my refresher courses that AI will never replace you, but a human with the knowledge of AI can replace you. So you should adapt to the change. That is nature. It's like you have to adapt, but then you should not adapt at the course, at the expense of losing all your critical thinking. You have to still critically think. I still meet my students and I take the help of AI fine, you write the thesis or you write your report with the help of AI, but then you have to read what AI has written, and then you have to critically think, is what they have written, is can I contribute little more in there?
That is such
So that,
valuable practical advice that please read what you what AI has produced, because
absolutely,
sometimes they just
there are times when the AI itself is giving a wrong information. It is
yes,
there.
yes.
So
Where will AI get its information from? The data banks available? So
absolutely.
it's been a wonderful conversation, speaking to both of you. I was wondering, what do I do with two botany professors? What am I going to ask them? I'm a finance guy, and most of my guests come from the technology, film world, and all of that stuff. But such a wonderfully refreshing conversation. Today's discussion reminds us that botany is not a small subject. It is a big doorway into understanding life itself. Plants may be silent, but their impact is so loud. They feed us, they heal us, they shelter us, protect our environment, and hold answers to some of humanity's biggest challenges. In every conversation about climate change, food shortage, health, sustainability, agriculture, and biodiversity, botany has a seat at the table. That I learned today. For young learners, the lesson is clear. Careers are not built just on a defined path or built in the most glamorous or most advertised fields. Careers are built where real problems exist. And some of the world's biggest problems are connected to plants, soil, forest, food, medicine, and the environment. A student of botany today can become a researcher, teacher, scientist, conservationist, entrepreneur, agriculture innovator, environmental consultant, food scientist, plant biotechnologist, policy expert, or sustainability leader. The possibilities are far wider than most people imagine. So, to every young person listening and watching, do not underestimate a subject because it looks quiet from the outside. Sometimes the quietest subjects carry the deepest power. Botany is not just about studying plants, it is about studying the future of life on Earth. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Neelam Mishra, Dr. Anisha David. It has been wonderful to have you, and I wish you the very best. And I hope to come to your campus one day and see you in action. Thank you.
Sure.
Surely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Smile.
Mr. Nalin.
Thank you.